Well, hello, my friends. So in this lesson, we're going to learn the global object. All right, so if you have ever written JavaScript in a browser, you probably know the window object. And we can access properties and methods on that window object, such as alerts, elements, or set intervals, etc. So when we write JavaScript in Node, the global object is no longer the window object because we're not in a browser anymore, right? So that makes sense. The global object in Node is an object called, well, for lack of a better word, I guess, global. But much like the window object, it gives us access to some methods that we can use and exploit in Node.js. So why don't we go ahead and open Node.js, here, the documentation, and we'll have a look at some of those methods. So here you can see I've opened the nodejs.org in my browser. So I'm just going to click on this docs link. And I'll select one of these versions. You select whatever version you want to read about. And I'll click on the first one. Now, see over here on the sidebar, I'll just select globals. All right, so here we can understand, perhaps, a little deeper the methods about the global object in here. We can see things like the dir name, console, set interval, and other methods. We can also use all of these methods on the global object in Node.js. All right, so let's head on over to Code Editor and try a few of these out. Now, I've still got this app.js file that we made earlier. So in here, I don't want to use external terminal commands to see the output. So I'm going to use VS Code's inline terminal. So go ahead and open it up. And I'm going to press Command-Shift-Y and see how that opens. Now, if you're using VS Code, you can use this inline terminal as well. I'm just going to use this terminal to save a little time, just so that I don't have to open another screen. Of course, you don't have to use this terminal. You can use any other command line interface that you want to. It's entirely up to you. But I would advise you to follow along with me. Who knows where we're going to go? It's a big world. All right, so I'm going to click on this terminal tab right here. So in the terminal, I am in the Node.js tutorial directory. All right, so you see this console log method. It's available on the global object. And we've logged this message to the terminal down here using console.log in Node a couple of lessons ago. And see here, we've written this message. Save the file, and then run the application in Node by saying node app. And that means that we have seen this message in console. All right, so let's look at some other methods which may be available on the global object. For example, we can use the setTimeout method, and that's available on the global object. So why don't we go ahead and try it? But before doing that, we can comment out this console log. So I'm just going to say setTimeout. Now in here, I'm going to fire a function, and this function is going to fire after 3,000 milliseconds. Then inside this function, I'm just going to say console log. And then I'll say, hi there. All right, so now when we run this file in Node, setTimeout is going to fire this function after 3,000 milliseconds, which just happens to be 3 seconds. And then it's going to log this message to the terminal down here. Whew, are you nervous? So I'm going to type in node app. Press enter. Okay, 3 seconds later, and look at that. Hi there is logged down here. So we also have a set interval method available in the global object. much like on the window object, but here, I'll show you something. Let's change this to set interval. I'm going to say set interval instead of set timeout in here. And this time I'm going to change it to 2000 milliseconds. Then I will create a variable up in here, and I'll say let count and set it to equal to 0. All right, so every time this function is called, because we've set this to set interval, not set timeout, this function is going to be called every 2000 milliseconds, every 2 seconds. And every time this is called, we're going to add 2 to the this count variable. Follow? So I'm going to say count is equal to count plus 2. Then I'm going to log out count to the terminal every 2 seconds. And I'm just going to remove this text in here. I'll use a backtick instead. And inside here, I'm going to put the $sign, then a set of curly braces, and I'll put the count variable inside of it, like so. All right, now, this is important. Right after this, I'm going to say, seconds have passed. So in other words, whenever this is going to be updated by 2, and then it's going to tell us how many seconds have passed in total. Okay, so let's save all this and run it on the terminal. So I'm going to say node app. And then every 2 seconds, we're going to see a message logged onto the console. Okay, so it's updating the count each time around and logging the count to the console. So do you notice that Node is still running this file? It's caught in some kind of loop. It's never going to end unless we tell it to end. So the way that we end a process is just by hitting Control-C. Yeah, it's going to stop. Now we can also use the clear interval to end it. So to do that, we'll set this interval equal to a variable, and then we can call it as a timer. So I'm just going to say const timer and set it to be equal to this. And I'm going to do an if check in here. So if the count is over 6 seconds, then I'm going to clear the interval. And then the interval is this thing right here, the timer. So I'm going to say clear interval, and we're going to clear the timer. Okay, so let's save it and run it. So in here, I'm going to say node app, press enter, and wait 2 seconds, and print it out. These will be the messages to the terminal. Okay, so after it reaches 8, because it's over 6 seconds, and it's going to clear that interval. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, you probably know this, right? They are also available in Window Object. Cool. So now I want to show you a couple of other things which are going to be really helpful. I know they are. So I want to show you the directory name and file name. And before we see those things, I'll comment this out. Okay, so Node can tell us the particular directory and the file that we are in. And we can do that just by saying console log and then __ dir name. And let's save it and run the Node app again to see our directory. So I'm going to say Node app. Okay, so it's telling me the directory that I'm currently in, the Node.js playlist. So this Node.js playlist, this is the directory that this app file is in. Okay, so let's see the file name now. So I'll say console log __ file name. So let's save all this and preview the file name in the terminal. So I'll say node app All right, so this time it gives me the full file name. Okay, so of course, there are lots of cool methods that we can use inside Node.js. We can use this method anywhere in the application because they sit on the global object. So you can check out the documentation page to learn more things about global object and others. We're going to be covering more things, of course, within this global object in the coming tutorials. So for now, we're just going to take a break and we'll come back in the next lesson.